Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sharon Dooley. I'm the moderator for today's presentation. We have an interesting topic on fine-tuning your maintenance plans, and it's going to be presented by Paresh Motawala. And I'll just run through a bunch of interesting preliminary stuff, and then I'll turn the meeting over to him. Uh, there's this new past Facebook Live uh, effort um, with popular experts. Um, you can find more by going to pass.org, and it will tell you more about this program. There's also a career center. You can post resumes if you're looking for a new job, or you can look at resumes if you're looking to hire competent SQL Server people. Uh, the recordings from the past summit are available. You can get them at thepastboutique.com if you'd like to have your own personal copy. We are one of many virtual groups. Uh, you can see that they're in all sorts of different areas, and you can just go to your past profile and sign up for the mailing list for any of the virtual groups that you're interested in. If you've not been to a SQL Saturday, you need to learn about them. They are one-day free training events. They are held all over the world, and they are really, really great places to go. They're always on a Saturday, and as I said, they're free. Uh, we're a virtual group, which means that we only have an online presence, but there are local chapters in many, many areas of the world, and you can learn about them at pass.org. And if you don't have a local group, you can set one up by contacting the CE at sqlpass.org. They're great opportunities for face-to-face networking, and they usually have a speaker, sometimes a presentation from the sponsor. The local group in my area always has pizza and soda, and it meets like at 5:30, so it won't take time out of your work day. You can, well, PASS is an all-volunteer organization. Uh, you just update your my volunteer section of your PASS profile, and each month an outstanding volunteer is chosen, and um, you can nominate your colleagues for that if you think they should be so recognized. This is not for those of you who are here, but there's a lot of people who find the recordings of our sessions on YouTube, and they're missing out because they don't get the full benefit of joining PASS. It's a free membership, and in addition to the recordings, we post the scripts and other supplemental materials on our website. And I've already said free membership about 18 times, so let's skip this slide. Paresh is part of the DBA virtual group team, and he's also an Azure enthusiast and a DBA manager at Nuance Corporation in Boston. He has led several SQL implementations, migrations, and upgrades. He has managed multi-terabyte OLTP databases, and he loves learning and talking about big data. And some of you may have heard his presentation last fall when he talked about big data for our group. He's been a DBA manager and a solutions architect in Fortune 100 companies. He helps organize and speaks at many SQL Saturdays and users group. He's certified in a bunch of different things. He's a project manager, a public speaker, an avid singer, cook, open networker, and stand-up comedian. Okay. And he's also a very skilled DBA. Okay. He also teaches public speaking, debating, and interviewing and group discussion skills. He mentors DBAs in the Boston area and children around the globe through an organization he founded called Circles of Growth. And now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Paresh and let him um, do his thing. Go to it, Paresh. You need to unmute yourself.
Oh, awesome. Hi, folks. Sorry. It's always wondering what happens to the microphone, and now it works. So, thank you everyone for joining and sacrificing your lunch hour or making this as a lunch and learn. My name is Paresh Motiwala. I've been doing the DBA work for pretty close to 20 years now, and I also am leading the Boston Business Intelligence chapter and the New England SQL Server user group here. So, between the two, we have roughly 4,700 plus members. Today, it's one of the topics that has plagued a lot of us over the years as to, geez, how come I'm not able to finish my maintenance on time? How come there's always running over some of the other jobs that are being run by the user or for the user? So over the past roughly 1.5 years or so, I have worked extensively on studying where we make mistakes, how can we do things that will make us go through our maintenance plans better. So for those whose disaster recovery plan looks like this Dilbert thing, my sympathies with you. So this is my contact information for those who are interested. My email is pareshmotivala@gmail.com, Paresh Motivala at LinkedIn, and then Twitter is also at Paresh Motivala. So go ahead and tweet about whatever you hear from me today. And as Sharon said, that I'm also in leadership team for the past DBA virtual chapter, for which also we have the Twitter handle that is at pass_DBA_VC. Please go ahead and tweet about this presentation. At least say it was awesome. Even if it is alternative facts, please go ahead and do that. So I'm from Boston, in case you didn't already figure that out. No, I'm not from Philadelphia. And Sharon, you're going to lose, my friend, in less than 2 weeks. And I live just about 2 miles north of the Patriot Stadium. So today we'll talk about a whole bunch of things. So If I go through this very fast, then you can take 10 or 15 minutes of your life back. If not, feel free to ask questions to me. I would love to answer them as I go along. So we'll talk about backups. We'll talk about staggered backups. We'll talk about striped backups. We'll talk about parallel backups with PowerShell. And I have a link for the MS SQL tips site there. How do you handle restores? Why do we need to consider restores as a part of your maintenance plan? We'll also go through that, and how do we make sure that we have restores that also finish on time. We'll also talk about one very important concept, which I have actually spoken for as a separate topic for 1 hour and 15 minutes, and that is copy data virtualization, something that is revolutionizing the world of secondary storage. And if you would have noticed that 80% of our storage today lies in secondary data like QA, UA, development, and a whole bunch of other environments that you could be running. So we'll talk about copy data virtualization, how you can use that to work smartly. How do you check your database integrity? Do you really check your database integrity daily, weekly, whenever do you do that? We can go through that. Reindexing versus reorganizing your indexes and so on. Um, Updating statistics, when do you do that? We'll definitely talk about this as well. Um, then timing your maintenance. One of the things that I learned when I joined this company where I work currently is that a lot of our although the databases are held, for example, in Boston, the customers themselves are in very different time zones. So we cannot necessarily back up, restore, or do reindexing of the same databases universally at 12 o'clock at night or whatever time we choose. So we have to work on that too. Uh, Try to use third-party job schedulers. They could really save your life sometimes. One of the reasons why you want to do this is because now you are not totally dependent on SQL Server agent. So if at any given point in time, should your SQL Server bite the dust, you don't have to worry about recreating all the jobs, etc. for that. So planning, reassessing, replanning, always keep taking stock of what you're doing. And if we have time, then we'll try to answer some questions. Otherwise, you can have whatever time that remains uh, add back to your life. So tuning your maintenance plans. Let's talk about backups. So one of the things that we have learned over these months and years is take a full backup weekly. Mm, if your database is like 300 gigabytes or 500 gigabytes, and if you are looking for the conventional backup tools only, that could be your native SQL backups. You could be using things like Idera backup or Redgate backup or Lightspeed backup or whatever you're using. Make sure that you know how much time each of this takes, for which also I have something else that we will cover in the end. Differential daily and then transaction logs virtually every 15 minutes. And that could really save your bacon big time. Backups. And this is something that I had seen, I believe, in Brent Ozar's website, and I actually decided to try this out on a database that was 3 terabytes big. Okay, and when we compressed the backup, it came down to about 280 gigabytes from 3 terabytes. So compression definitely helps. That much of less traversing the network if you're going to take it off the server and store it at your remote storage location, either it's a NAS or a CIFS or something like that. The backup drives were all RAID 5, which kind of sucks, but then that's what we had to work with at the given point in time. So I just wanted to go through this, okay? So what we did was, when I say we, means me and my team, because somebody did one part of the work, I did the other part of the work, but the essence was that this machine had 4 cores and 8 gigabyte RAM, and we ran an 8 file backup. It took us 72 minutes. And the CPU use was approximately 97%. The IO Mbps and was approximately 634, which means that we were absolutely totally choking our SAN. We used the buffer count of 500 and the block size of 64K and the max transfer size of 2097152 bytes. Um, the standard weight types that we got, which is generally what you will see when backups are running, is the backup buffer, async IO, and backup IO weight types. By monkeying around a little bit, say for example, by changing the buffer count from 500 to 800, but leaving the max transfer size, we found that it actually increased the time of the backups. Then I said, okay, let me cut down the buffer count because the buffer actually goes right into your memory. So by changing that to 200, we could actually cut down the backup time to about 67 minutes. The CPU is still pegged at 95%, not good. The IO Mbps is at 650, which was not very good for my SAN people. And we also increased the max transfer size. So after multiple trials and errors, we found that 4 file backup or a 4 stripe backup took us approximately the same size, but it kept CPU at a rather friendly performance level. The IO was about 615, and we couldn't have done anything more or less than that. So when you do this, definitely do it in a test region. That's the easiest thing that I would recommend for you to do. Uh, but make sure that the test server that you are working on is actually a production category server. So it shouldn't be that you're working on one core server and 4 GB RAM just to test the backups. That won't work. Any questions so far? How we went about designing this or working on this? Feel free to just shoot it there, and Sharon will share it with me. So, where's my stopwatch? Okay. So then we went over to a more powerful machine. Same database, same RAID system, but this one had more cores and more memory. Now you can see the time difference that we had here. For an 8 file system, 3 terabyte database essentially took only 30 minutes. Why? The buffer count was 800. So it was able to actually suck up more information into the buffer and then go through. And it was also very friendly with IO. So it's only about 310 compared to the earlier one where you could see it was about 635 or so. Then we changed this to 8 again, just wanted to be sure if that was a fluke. But as it turned out, this time we got 800 Mbps. That totally just killed my SAN, and we were actually thrown out of the data center. Said never ever try this again, because that SAN was also housing other databases, which were production. And then I switched it over to 2 files. It took us 59 minutes, but the CPU went down approximately 2 to 5%. And in the earlier one, as you can see, for some reason, we got only 2 to 5% CPU usage. And in the second one here, the IO was 613 Mbps. Um, this was not the most friendliest thing for us to do. For some sad reason, I forgot to actually document how much it took us for the 4 files backup. But eventually we found out that by using, this was the production machine, and by using a 4 file backup, we actually found the happiest medium, and the entire backup was completing in about 34 or 35 minutes time for a 3 terabyte database. So Stripe backups, right? Now what we did was managing this count of buffer count and the block size and max file transfer size was becoming too much for anybody to manage, keep track of, because it was not going to be consistent across all environments. So we said, you know what? forget this whole thing and let's just stick to the defaults that come with the backup. So this time we did the same exact thing, same exact SAN system that we have, right? And this is the output that we got. For one stripe, it took us 4 hours, roughly, as you can see, 228 minutes. For two stripes, 170 minutes. And for four stripes, it took us little less than 2 hours, little around 2 hours. CPU was approximately 70%, and IO was 336 Mbps, which was not making my SAN guy scream. So we selected to go for a 4-file backup. And this was by far the happiest medium we could do without killing any other applications either. So trial and error, feel free to go ahead and contradict me on any of these things that you see today. If you have a better finding, different findings, I'm very much open to finding out what your experiences are. I'm just sharing what my experiences have been there, and then I will also share with you what other things you can do to avoid this completely. Now, remember what I told you, this backups are going through the conventional backup systems like native SQL backup only. Okay. So for parallel backups, right? How would you handle that? So just assume, let me go back one slide. As you can see, you can have one job kick off one large database in 4 files or a 4-stripe backup. While that is happening, you could actually kick off other smaller databases to be backed up through a second job. As a DBA, I have been lazy enough to make sure that everything was backed up using only one job, not the smartest thing to do. Um, so what I decided this time was that we will have two different sets of jobs so we could actually go ahead and make this run in parallel. In the parallel jobs, what I did was the big database was backed up straight over the network onto a remote server or a NAS device. And the other smaller databases, which were approximately also taking the same amount of time, were first backed up locally. And once the backup was completed from either side, we would then go ahead and move these files over to the remote location. And that way we could actually use the network interface wisely without choking anything at all. Parallel backups, can they be portable? That's a question you want to ask. For example, in some places, if you make parallel backups or stripe backups, these backups are then used for restoring to lower regions as well. So you want to watch out against that because they are used to, either going to a device, taking that device and restoring it somewhere else. Whereas with this, they might actually end up having to change their restore job. So the question when I ask, is it portable, is what else would it kill if you change your backup methods? You want to be very, very much aware of this. And as I said, watch out for the capacity of your NIC. So if you're on a VM or some sort of a virtual machine and you are trying to use what I just did, is copy over 300 gigabytes of backups every night, that is just one database. And then you might have multiple databases, and then you might have multiple VMs on the same ESX host. That is just going to totally annihilate your backup systems and your NIC. You may not get too much input from if the users are trying to use your system at the time, good luck with that. So watch out for these three things when you're running parallel backups. Questions? Okay, I'll go ahead then. Use this PowerShell script, okay, to back up databases in parallel. I have actually tried this. It's awesome. If you're using Ola Hellengren script, you might have to modify that to make sure that you can actually run it in 2 or 3 different places. But PowerShell is your best friend when you want to go ahead and do this in parallel. So database integrity checks. I will also come back to this after we speak about the copy data virtualization. So database integrity checks, right? Somehow when the databases were maybe 100 gigabytes or 10 gigabytes, it was okay for you to run database integrity checks every day. I'm not a big fan of running them every day because remember, you have only so little maintenance window every day, sometimes not at all. So if you are going to now back up your database, check the database for integrity, reindex all the indexes, uh, you are talking of a long time before your users can actually actively start using these systems because it will create some sort of either locks or blocks and so on. So be very careful when you're using this. I would suggest check your database integrity weekly. Now, here's one thing. If somehow your friendly or unfriendly neighborhood DBA says that no, I want you to run the database integrity checks every day, then what I would suggest is if you are using some mode of restoring your existing production database for reporting environments, do not run your integrity checks against production, but I would say much rather run it against reporting. Because reporting people don't show up to office till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, as a result of which you have that extended maintenance window for the same work that you're doing in production. You can do the same exact thing on the reporting database. Because remember, when you are actually doing the database integrity checks, you're not going to say, okay, repair with allowed data loss or something like that. So basically running that entire integrity check against the production database is really, I feel, totally stupid. So avoid doing that if possible. And if you have a backup or a reporting system, definitely do it against that. Stripe restores. It also, I have some, this is the one which I wanted to share with you. The findings of what I put in this whole experiment lasted for about a month, and I lost multiple friends in my storage department too. So as you can see, when I use this, the backup that I had taken in the earlier slide that you saw, um, read and write was to the same drive. The time in minutes for the restore was approximately 96. And as you can see, the latencies were pretty high, like 36, 10, 23, 86. This was by restoring from 4 files. The wait types were again backup IO and backup thread waits. But the good news was in all the restores, the CPU was 5% or less. And the IO Mbps very high, but still manageable without losing your friends in the storage department. That is 376 Mbps was the approximate or the average IO that was taken for this particular file. Um, Same thing, if you go down one row lower, you can see 2 files restored took us about 105 minutes, but the latencies for some strange reason were showing us very high, very, very high, and we did not touch that at all. But the good news was that the CPU was still low. The 8 file restore took us actually, believe it or not, more. This was multiple trials and errors. We found out that 4 was the best way to go for us. So that is how, when you are considering striping your backups, you not only want to take up the resources consumed during the backup, but you also want to equate that with the resources taken during the restore, because that is exactly why you should have a balanced approach. And we found out that the 4 file backup was by far the best thing we could do. Okay, so 4 files, and we backed it up using default parameters, and we restored it, and it worked like a charm. So remember, 3 terabyte database roughly in about 1.5 hour time we could restore. Okay, let's move forward. What's copy data virtualization? There is a 1 hour, 15-minute presentation almost exclusively dedicated for copy data virtualization. If you want to see that, give us a howl back. We can actually do it over here, or we can also come up with something like a lightning talk where we can do the same exact presentation in about 25 minutes or 20 minutes or so. So having said that, I have mentioned that almost 80% of our storage is used up by secondary data, which lies in UA, QA, disaster recovery, 5 copies of backups that you keep on your remote storage just in case you have to restore some version of production data like now. And then everything that you do typically is backed up to tapes. So if you have a 1 terabyte database for a 5-year period, you are looking at approximately 2 petabytes of storage requirements. Please repeat after me wherever you are. 1 terabyte equates to approximately 2 petabytes of secondary data. So you want to watch out of how can I handle that? Go for newer technologies. There are multiple vendors available for this. Ping me, I can put you onto any of these vendors. But the way this copy data virtualization works is that it will take the first backup as a full backup. Everything else will be incremental. There is no concept of differential in a copy data virtualization. So what will happen is that if your first database backup of a 3 terabyte database is compressed to 280 gigabytes, the chances are that every subsequent backup that you take, even if you call it a full backup, and I'm using the full as a double quotes here, it will still only back up the incremental, add it to the existing full backup, and then with a little bit of timestamp. So now what happens is that you feel like you have taken a full backup again, but you have actually not. So guess how much time it takes for you once you have taken the first backup. How much time do you think will it take you to back up a 3 terabyte database tomorrow morning? Can somebody just put in some answers here for me, please, in the chat room? Sharon, are you seeing anything? Okay, nobody responded. Ouch. Okay. So next day, when you are taking a full backup again, you will find that that whole backup is completed in less than 5 minutes. That is the power of copy data virtualization. But wait, so
Sorry,
what if it?
Paresh. The
Yeah,
worrisome
go ahead.
response is I just couldn't get myself unmuted. Uh, the seconds, 30 minutes, 1 minute, not much time at all, 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so that's exactly what I just said. That is the amount of time it will take. So what if it takes less time? How does that really help me, right? So the important thing is that now you have gained back approximately 1.5 to 2 hours of your maintenance window, which you can now do to reindex more indexes or reorganize more indexes with all the time that you got. This is what you can do with it. Okay. Now, one more thing. Oh, come on. Okay. Okay. So as you said, everybody pointed out it's going to take less than 5 minutes, right? Okay. How does that help you in your restore? Again, a 3 terabyte restore to a target server. How much time do you believe it will take? Sharon, another unmuting and checking out the answers you get.
1 hour.
1 hour. Okay. Is that the highest or the lowest?
Close to the same amount it took to do the backup.
Okay. Beautiful. So it's slightly wrong there. So if you have to restore a 3 terabyte database or a 5 gigabyte database, it would still take you less than 5 minutes. So now remember, we spoke about restoring these databases to smaller environments like QA, reporting, etc. Your backup window just came down from 2 hours to 5 minutes. Your restore time went down from 2 hours to less than 5 minutes. What are you going to do with all this time that you saved? Here's what you can do. When you when you restore the database using copy data virtualization to your target servers, use that copy to run your dbcc commands to check the database integrity. So what would normally take you 5 hours plus to even start your dbcc check db command is now totally doable in less than 5 minutes. So that is the amount of time you can save. You can also, you don't have to work on the same exact production database server, but you can work on your target server and it will give you the same exact response as you would get on the production server. But mind you, now because dbcc commands are resource intensive, you can now transfer that responsibility to a different server and yet get the exact answer that you are looking for. It's like conducting a blood report on somebody else's blood, literally, without you getting a single poke in your skin. So let's come back to timing as to staggered reindexing. How would you go about reindexing? Stagger them. If your database is like 10 terabytes, maybe one of those tables can be reindexed today, maybe they can be reindexed tomorrow, 1 week later, or something like that. And this is what Microsoft has always recommended. If it is greater than 30%, go ahead and rebuild. Okay. Again, stagger it over the days, preferably over the weekends. If it is less than 30%, what will you do? Go ahead and reorg, not necessarily rebuild. I was a lazy DBA once and I would just create one single plan. I never actually looked at any of the other scripts that were available in the market at the time. And I just used this because we did not have a very well defined maintenance window for ourselves, so we could afford to do that. Uh, a lot of us make a huge mistake, and I'm telling you, I made that mistake myself as well, was to try and rebuild the statistics after the reindexing was done. That was really stupid of me. Don't do that because all the statistics are reset anyways, so you don't really get any help out of that. Um, Please enable instant file initialization when you're restoring your databases. That really helps you to get the restores finished much faster. Here's a bummer, something that a DBA should learn. It's just like a diaper. Clean up after yourself. Seriously, a lot of us do not do that. We take a backup, even if it is temporary, we will keep it hanging there. At the end of the year, suddenly you run out of space. One day, one of your backup dies because there is no space there, because now there is an orphan file. Nobody knows where that backup came from. And then you end up asking 20 people, is that your backup? Is that your backup? And it takes sometimes 2 to 3 days to find out that you yourself had that backup for your that was still lying around doing nothing on your production server. So third-party job schedulers, what are the benefits for us for a third-party job scheduler? So when I wrote this, then I decided, should I mention the vendor? But possibly if somebody can tell me what vendor I'm talking about, that'll be awesome. It's not really a vendor, it's like a two-person company, but that scheduler really works great. So you don't really require programming skills. Okay. They handle flow and error, everything. This is a very insulting statement, but yes, even DBAs can use it. It interacts with everything, whether it's an Oracle, it's a SQL thing, it's a SSIS job, it's a PowerShell job, it's a Windows Server job, it's a command.com job, it's a cron job of some sort. Everything can be taken care of with these third-party schedulers. But the more important thing about using third-party schedulers that I told you in my first slide is that in case your SQL Server dies, you don't have to worry about salvaging the jobs at all, because all these jobs are running from this one place only. And I have yet to come across a situation where this third party job scheduler machine has died. So I would strongly encourage you to try researching these. And if you have something, go ahead and tweet me about it, what job scheduler you are using. I would love to hear that from you folks. And how are we doing on time? Okay. This one also saves you a lot of time and money. Why? Because this is controlled. Wait, the most important part, you don't have to babysit this yourself. A lot of large companies have central network operation centers like NOC or data center or something like that, or a third party company that is monitoring your SQL servers. You don't have to give those people any access to the SQL server, because they can now just look at the third party at this job scheduler, and they can determine what is going on. They can read the error messages right there and call the DBA on call to see if they can be of any assistance. So it's a definite good way to do this, and it's a very secure way of doing it too. There is way too much extended logging that goes into this. You'll totally love it. And you can also go ahead and start inserting this data into either Splunk or any other um, error logging systems that you may have, right? Ah, this is not my English. Sorry about that. It eliminates human errors, right? Uh, and it helps you automate a lot. Great. Just take a minute. This is why you need a third-party job scheduler. Okay? That a job died 751 days ago and nobody knew about it. That's a shame. Okay, so planning and reassessing. Let's look at that. So look for changes in the environment. Okay, keep on looking and reassessing your situation, say maybe once every 2 months, because things change. You had all the intentions to document those changes, but guess what? You did not. So somewhere down the line, you will have to consider, okay, if the nick changed or whatever changed, can you incorporate those changes to better your life so that you don't get paged every time something dies during maintenance window? Uh, has the business requirement changed? Does the business want you to not have a 2 hour maintenance window every day? Maybe it has only 20 minutes. You might have to reassess this whole thing and see how to handle that situation. Keep on looking for newer technologies. How do you find newer technologies? Follow some really famous SQL personalities on Twitter and keep on reading their tweets. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of it is just trash, but somewhere in that you will find a lot of new technologies that they would have evaluated, and you can actually go ahead and do that yourself in your organization too. Second thing, attend events like these. Go to SQL Saturdays, go to your user group meetings, talk to fellow DBAs, network with them. You will find at least one thing that you did not know before in these user group meetings. So I strongly advise that you go ahead and do all this, which will help you in turn fine tune your maintenance plans. Downstream and upstream both. The actions that you are performing, you are doing it because you got something from somewhere, and what you are doing also feeds something downstream for you. So if either ways, by using newer technologies, either upstream or downstream, if you can make your process more error free and more user friendly and more automated, the happier you will be. The other thing, I had not planned to talk about this. I didn't know if I would have time, so I have. So I'm going to go ahead and do this now. So for the past about 5 years, I would say we have something what we call as a DBA data warehouse, which would essentially take your job information and start putting it into one single database. It would include, say, for example, one table could have just the backups information, which would say size of backups, the time it took for backups, the time it took for reindexing the databases, what is the growth of the disk consumption, and so on. The purpose of doing this is that now you can actually use one of your Power BI tools and run reports against this data warehouse to find out some hidden trends in your backups. For example, on the first of every month, is your backup taking longer? Because usually a lot of processing happens on the first morning or the 31st night. Now, this would actually stand out if you have a well timed and well designed data warehouse and its collections for the data. It will also help you track down your growth in the disk consumption. Uh, how many times have you actually been in a situation where you go to the consumption or the, sorry, not the consumption, you go to the infrastructure people and say, hey guys, I need another 2 terabytes. And the first question that they will ask you is, what the hell happened to 2 terabytes I gave you the other day? And you say, they got consumed. So can you show me how they got consumed? And now you are at total loss of words because now you'll have to run around to try to get some reports together. Whereas here you can actually tell them with just one single report, this is how it has been consuming. You can actually approach your business user, tell them, guys, you did not plan for this growth in data. And as a result of which, what is happening is that we are constantly running out of disk space and we look like the bad guys here. So cough up more money or let us know ahead of time how we go about doing this. Because remember, if you are not tracking your disk consumption, what's going to happen is you don't know how much time you have in hand every single time. So if the time to back up the database, the time to restore the database is something that is changing slowly but steadily, you will not be able to plan for an appropriate maintenance time. For example, in my company, we have like once a month maintenance window, and it is like a 1 hour maintenance window that we have on Sunday mornings, right? During that, we have to ensure that before the maintenance begins, for applying patches or anything like that, we have all our backups done. If you do not have a trend that you have tracked over past year or so, you will never be able to forecast when your last backup job will actually complete and yet be able to go through your maintenance work. So please take care of that. It'll really help you. A DBA data warehouse goes a long way. Okay. So staggered backups, right? Stripe backups, that's what we spoke about, right? Try to back up um, one set locally, the other set over the NIC at different times of the day, given your business requirements. Stripe your backups. I have also recorded for you the findings. I found that the 4 file backups was by far the happiest medium, both for backup and restores. Check your database integrities on the copy of the database that you have, not on the production database. It'll help you cut down your maintenance windows significantly. Uh, Definitely, if nothing that you took from me today, take this copy data virtualization fundamentals today. Feel free to question me on Twitter, reach out to me. I'll give you my contact information again as well. But do use copy data virtualization as quick as possible. It gets pricey sometimes, but it will save your butt really big time. Striped restores and Stripe backups, staggered reindexing will help you a lot. Rebuilding statistics, you don't want to do. A lot of people end up making the same mistake again and again because that fancy little tool bit is available in your maintenance plan window. Remember, Q&A. If you have questions, it's a good time to ask. Sharon, do we have any
Right.
questions?
Yeah, we have a few. One
Okay.
of them goes back a ways, and that has how long did it take with a single stripe? That was back at the near the beginning.
That was the longest it took. And I think I have it here. I can actually go back. Let me see if I can go back here. Mhm. Where was it? Here, here, here. It's approximately 4 hours. If that answers your question, gentlemen, whoever it was. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay. Um, wouldn't it be safer check database integrity daily and change rebuild indexes, update statistics tasks to weekly?
I mean, again, I would give the classic DBA response. Depends. Uh, I have found that really checking if you have a very dependable disk subsystem, checking it every day, in my opinion, is really a waste of time and resources. Uh, if you have to and if you must do it, please do it on a copy of the production database. So if in case there is a problem, you can find it and then try to fix it with a known solution rather than directly on the production database. If that answers your question. If not, tweet to me. Other question.
I have questions on backup tuning. What are by defaults for max transfer size, buffer count, and block size?
Oh God, I. You know what? That's a shame. I should have noted that. Can I take this as a question that I can send an answer to?
Yep.
Okay. So please send me this question, Sharon. I would
I'll
love to
send you
hear.
all the questions, Paresh.
Okay, great. That'll be awesome. I am so sorry I'm not prepared for that. Okay.
Okay, and then there was some mentions of third-party schedulers, and then somebody shared an experience. He said, had a case recently where SQL jobs were running for the past 5 to 6 years under a domain account, and that account was removed, and nobody noticed until the transactions log job ran out of disk space.
hmm So again, monitoring is one of the things you want to do. Maybe I should have also added, and I am going to add that one here, is monitoring backups that never actually finished. Because see, when the job fails, it is logged. When it is finished, it is logged. But if it is not finished, it is never logged. So there is a script that I wrote with one of my colleagues, and that actually has some manual intervention in it. In the sense, you have to put in something what you know as normal, and then if that backup doesn't finish in that normal time, it will page you. So we have that. So monitoring uncompleted backup is something I need to add here too.
Um, Somebody says, I would sure like to know what the third party scheduler is. I believe that's the free one you were mentioning.
Yes, so I think Visual Cron is what I was talking about. Vcron or Visual Cron. That's
Mm.
I think it's essentially a freeware. So to some extent, you might have to buy some things if you have to, but it is still by far the largest, most prominent job monitoring software that I have seen. So if that helps.
When you did your backup test, did you actually back up to real files or did you use null?
No, no, no. We did real files, my friend.
Why rebuild indexes when they are not fragmented?
Uh, how do you know they're not fragmented, right? So then what has to happen is that you have to rebuild the index if the answer to the script is that is the fragmentation greater than 30%, then go ahead and rebuild it. But remember, on a large database, it takes you much longer time to even get result for that script. So it's again something, if it is not fragmented, don't do it. Over the time you would know. So say for example, if you run the, that index statistics DMV, something like that, I forgot the name exactly, but by querying that DMV, you can actually find out how badly fragmented your indexes are. Maybe you can do this off hours, maybe Saturday and Sunday, and find out how often they get fragmented and so on. It can get pretty ugly pretty quick. I would not suggest doing that. So if you want to run that query to find out if the database has been, the indexes have been fragmented or not, I would say go ahead and run that script against the restored clone. Either you do a physical restore or a copy data virtualization copy, you can go ahead and run it against that.
And there's an observation that that's what the maintenance plan does anyway. The
What?
north,
What does it do?
if you if you run a database maintenance plan, the built-in one, it'll
Yeah.
rebuild them whether they are fragmented or not.
Yes, exactly. And that is why I said, it's not, if you're a lazy DBA, it's great. Everything is rebuilt unconditionally. And if you have the luxury of time, please go ahead and do it. But as the complexity of our environments increase, you will find that it is much less likely that you will now have a luxury of actually monkeying around with your database downtime as frequently and as freely as you were able to do before.
And the final question I can answer, the question is how to download the slides from today's presentation. And Paresh is
Excellent.
going to send me the slides, and I will post them with the recording at dba.pass.org, and this will happen by Friday at the latest.
Yes, ma'am. I'll take care of it. Definitely.
Just send me the PowerPoint. I'll take care of everything else.
Okay. And for those who missed my contact details, here you are. Feel free to tweet about this. Any bouquets, brickbats. I don't bite back, so go ahead and give it to me. I have spoken. This is what my approximately 120th presentation. So I have evolved because I listen to my audience. So thank you very much, everyone, for spending your Wednesday afternoons with me, and I look forward to seeing you guys again when I'm either moderating or speaking again.
And I'd like to thank Paresh for his excellent presentation. I'm sure everybody learned a lot from this, and I'm just trying to save the questions log for him, but I'm not having any luck. But I'll save it somewhere. And
Okay, cool. Thank you, Sharon. You've been
thank you.
awesome
One
and as
second,
graceful as always.
I will get this done in just a second, and then I'll end the meeting. But you can sign off.
Okay, I will sign off. Okay, I'll try to go
Okay,
grab a
thanks.
bite. Thanks. Have a lovely day. Bye.
You too. Bye bye. We're gonna beat you.
High hopes. Cool.